Once again, you are welcome to this program, and I really do hope that we have a great time. So for you to be an authentic leader, there are 5 dimensions. They start from your purpose. What are your purpose in life? What are the purpose of your organization? What values do you hold dear? What relationships have you established? Are you self-disciplined? Do you look at people from the heart? And so those are some of the things. And so we're going to ask ourselves a few questions. Do we pursue purpose with passion? To become a leader, it is essential that you first answer the question, leadership for what purpose? What are you leading for? Do you lead for the sake of leading, or your leading is a means to an end? If you lack purpose and direction in leading, why would anyone want to follow you? Why would anyone? Daniel Goleman says that why should anyone be led by you? Why should anyone follow you? It is very important that our purpose, we must pursue it with passion. I've had quite few experiences in the workplace, and I see that people come to work without passion. So how do you bring passion to the workplace? And so authenticity will say that whether you are the owner of the business, whether you are working for someone, your leadership must reflect by the passion you put in your job. How do you serve people? Because sometimes when we have our own, we want to be served greatly. But when we are working for people, we tend to be shabby in what we do. And so the purpose and the passion we bring to our purpose is very critical. You know, what kind of values do we have? When that value is tested, would we be found wanting? Right? Like for those who are Christian, they say, when the roll is called up yonder, will you be found on the right side? And so those are things that we need to look at. What kind of values do you practice? Leaders are defined by their values and their character. Authenticity is really about character. What is your character? In crisis time, in a COVID-19 time, now you have a lot of time to spend with your family. Will your character change now that you are at home? How do you live a better life? How do you live a more holistic life, a more complete life? How do you balance your life with work and work at this time? How do you create a balance? How do you have time for the kids? How do you have time for other things? It's very critical at this time. And so what values do you hold dearly as an individual? Lead with the heart. You know, sometimes it's very easy for us to lead with our mind. Businesses have evolved from maximizing the physical output of their workers to engaging the minds of their people. To excel in the 21st century, great companies, great leaders will go one step further by engaging the hearts of their employees through a sense of purpose, engaging them, not just by saying that this is what we need to achieve, but begin to engage their mind and heart, and so that they can follow you. Establish enduring relationship. More too often, people work in the workplace, they don't know themselves. They say, look, I don't give a damn about knowing anybody. I just come here to work. We are here to work. What does it mean to have relationship? I come to work, I stay 8 or 9 to 5, I go home. There's no really need for a relationship. But the capacity to develop close and enduring relationship is one mark of a leader. The detached style of leadership will not be successful in 21st century. Today's employees demand more than that. Employees want people who pay attention to them, people who have their interests at heart, people who listen to them. And, you know, they want to give themselves fully to their jobs and to those leaders who pay attention to them. And just somehow it might be easy in this COVID-19 time. In emotional intelligence, we talk about the anxiety that people face right now. And in the US, a few days ago, I heard that one of the doctors, the emergency room ER doctor, that was in the front line committed suicide when she was infected with COVID-19. Imagine the kind of anxiety that even doctors who understand the psychology of the time have faced. And so there are a lot of psychological effects, the issue of well-being, depression and all that. And so how do you relate with your subordinate at this time? Or do you only call them when you have meetings? Oh, please, I sent a meeting. Did you see my meeting invite? You haven't attended to this. You haven't attended to that. What time do you have to reach time to even talk just about what is going on, how they are coping, in terms of even family life, what is going on, how you can help, and if they even have some learning, how you can also support them at this time. And so it's also self-discipline. You know, at this time, we need to demonstrate self-discipline. It is very critical. You can't be an authentic leader without this dimension. Self-discipline is an essential quality of an authentic leader. Without it, you cannot gain the respect of your subordinate. It's easy to say that someone has good values, but lacks the discipline to convert those values into consistent action. Do you still maintain the boundaries you used to maintain in office? Do you ask people before you send meeting invites to their calendars? Do you maintain those boundaries? It is still very important. They have more than enough to cope with at this time. Students are doing online studies. And most of us, we are aware that online studies is more of 80 to 90% the parents and just 20 or 10% the children. And so how do we understand that? If you are in a meeting, if you have children coming to meet their mom, their dad, how do you see it? Do you see it them as part of this process? Saying that, hey, hello, how are you doing? Just say hello and begin to understand the time. Those are critical characteristics that a leader who is authentic and should possess at this time. But it's good to align those in terms of your purpose, your values, the relationship, self-discipline, and leading from the heart with asking what passion. So we need to ask the question, what passion do you have for your purpose? What behaviors do you really exhibit to drive your values? How do you connect with your people at this time in terms of maintaining relationship? How consistent are you with those things you used to do prior to the COVID-19 time in terms of being disciplined? So what kind of compassion do you have in terms of how do you lead from the heart? And so we're going to be looking at them very briefly before we move to how we can now begin to migrate into that leadership journey. And so an authentic leader must have passion to pursue purpose. Many leaders search for years, even decades, to find the purpose for their leadership. It is relatively easy to state your purpose early in life, but much harder to develop passion for it. Passion for your purpose comes when you are highly motivated by your work because you believe in its intrinsic worth and you can use your abilities to maximize the effect. Having found the purpose, so how do you have the right values, behaviors to drive your values? You must be true to your values. How can you be true to your values? Have you found the purpose that you ignite your passion? You then have to test your values in the crucible of life experiences. And so sometimes some people believe that experiences don't matter. They do. The experiences that you have, the ups and the downs that you have, the challenges. For example, some of us, like me personally, I've lost an uncle at this time. People have lost loved one. Lost my uncle in London. He was healed, went to the hospital, and he was infected. And he has an underlying condition. And so he passed on Good Friday. And so people have different crucibles of life as they move on. And as at last week, so many people have passed on globally. And in Nigeria, the figures keep increasing every day. And to be very frank, we have not even started flattening the curve. And so people are going to lose loved ones. But what does that really mean? And what kind of lessons would that teach you at this time in terms of your crucibles? This does not just happen by listing your values. It's not about just listening values or saying that we have a clipper. So listening, we have a clipper of values. But what does it really mean in terms of that your values? What do they really mean? Only in the crucible will you learn how to cope with pressure to compromise your values and deal with potential conflict between them. And so sometimes if you are tested at this time, how will you stand? Will you still stand firm or you will fall? So leaders who are authentic must develop compassion. And more too often, like when we talk about emotional intelligence, one of the greatest hallmark of a socially aware leader is a leader who has empathy. You must have empathy. A lot of leaders in the workplace are so much about how you can get the job done. So it's about getting the job done. The how, they don't really pay attention to that. So can you lead authentically without compassion? It is not possible. Although some leaders behave as though they have no compassion for anyone, it is your life experiences that open up your heart to have compassion for the most difficult challenges that people face along life journey. Far too many leaders wall themselves off from people who are experiencing the full range of life's challenges. At this time, some leaders don't even want to know. If you have so much, can you give a little? You can see what's happening now. A lot of the sports leaders, those that are in the sporting world, they have been donating, they have been giving. A lot of our corporate leaders, corporate world, they have been giving. And so it is about, this is a time where you give. You might not even have so much, but you might have some aged uncles, aged aunties. At this time, how do you call them? Even giving them so little, little from the little that you have, they might go a long way. And so having compassion, looking at your subordinate at this time and asking them, how are you doing? How may I be of help? What can we do? What can the organization do for you at this time? Asking some of those questions might go a long way in relieving the anxiety that a lot of employees, and having the conversation in terms of being open, discussing what plans do you have. If you want to cut down the salaries of employees, having a frank and fair conversation at this time. If you want to be able to save job but reduce salary, how do you do that? Even if you want to relieve people of their job, what kind of conversation do you have at this time? It is very African. So those leaders often avoid, those leaders who don't have compassion, who don't have empathy, they often avoid intimate relationship, even with their friends and loved ones. They don't call. This time, social distancing doesn't mean that you shouldn't call. You can still call. So also relationships and connectedness. Enduring relationships are built on connectedness and a shared purpose, or working together towards a common goal. Every person has a life story. They want to share it with you. If you are open to hearing those stories with them, it is sharing our life stories that will develop trust and intimacy. And if you listen to Karen Lencioni, he always talk about sharing your life story. And he asked a question when they went for a strategy session and said, you have to be a vulnerable leader by sharing. Where did you grow up? What was growing up like? So in this COVID time, how do you know? I heard of a story of yesterday of cousins in Norway who migrated to US, and they were able to discover themselves that they were cousins from Norway, and they are just neighbors in the United States. And so how do you reflect in retrospection at this time? Those are critical things that an authentic leader must begin. But remember what I said, self-discipline must consciously and consistently practice. A leader who is authentic must practice self-discipline consistently. Leaders are always being examined under the microscope, their behaviors. Remember what we said about when we talk about emotional intelligence, about the mirror neuron, that leaders are those that subordinates want to mirror. They want to mirror what you do. And so when you have a leader who is a bully, then you are likely to breed bullies in the office. So it is very important for us to understand that. So their behaviors are observed, discussed, and described by their subordinate and colleagues. And so it is very important. Do I dare to share problems with my boss? How many of your subordinates can come to you and share their problem? Are you open? Do they see you? How many times have you discussed? So to be authentic, leaders must behave with consistency and not letting stress get in the way of their judgment. They must learn to handle any kind of pressure and stay cool and calm. It is very important. The authentic leadership journey. Let's go through this journey.